Dave Canales talked about this with Chuba Hubbard. Like, he was a guy that he felt really comfortable giving a ton of volume to, and that was the case last year. I think it's probably going to be the case at least to start this season. And talk about the schedule in the first 4 weeks: Jacksonville, Arizona, Atlanta, New England. Like, these are 4 teams that I don't think the Cardinals. Certain people are higher on the Cardinals defense. I think they could take a step forward. They certainly added some personnel this year that could help out Jonathan Gannon over there, but they're still a team because of how funky they play with some of their looks, some of their fronts versus the guys in coverage. Like, they will get gashed on the ground. I still think if I'm kind of weighing one or the other, like, where will Arizona take a big step as a defense? I think they're probably going to take a bigger step as a pass defense than a run defense. So these are 4 teams that I think you can run on, and Hubbard should be getting a lot of work to start the season.
Yeah, even that week 3 matchup with the Falcons, who are the only defense that isn't in the green in that graphic, they don't have Grady Jarrett there on their defensive line anymore, right? And he was a big part of why they were at least decent against the run. And more importantly, I think with this opening schedule, these are all teams where the game's going to be close, and we are going to have Chubbard getting a ton of work, right? I think that is a big part of this as well. It's not just good matchups. It's actually game scripts that could favor Hubbard, because the one area where I think he could lose a little bit of work this year is in the passing game, where maybe one of those other backs you mentioned gets involved. But with this schedule, I don't even think that's going to be a concern. I think he's going to get a lot of opportunity. They gave him the big deal last year. One of my biggest mistakes from the last fantasy season was kind of overvaluing Jonathan Brooks returning midway through the year and what that could mean for Hubbard. And of course, we didn't know that, Brooks was going to get hurt like that, and Hubbard was going to maintain that role and finish strong as well. But still, like, the team went out and got some other pieces there. I think they do want someone else involved in this backfield, but Chuba Hubbard is going to start the season strong. They trust him. They talk about him as a leader in that room, and they showed him the money last season, right? They want him in that role. So yeah, I think this is a great call. The schedule is really strong. And I think to start the year, they're not going to lean on those new pieces. They're going to lean on the guy that they trust.
Yeah. I mean, also with that Falcons defense too, you brought up Grady Jarrett not being there. This was on my radar, and we talked about it on the live draft show with Nate and Charles and I. Those 2 defensive ends that they drafted, Pierce and Jalen Walker, those are light guys. Those are light bodies. Like, this could be one of those teams that, they're trying so hard to juice that pass rush of that they actually give up some ground as a run defense. So again, just another reason I think to like Chuba Hubbard. Where do you have Hubbard right now in your running back rankings generally? Like, forget hot start of the season, anything like that. Just where are you at with him?
Mid-range RB2. I think he could definitely, with that schedule in the opening month, though, do what he did last season, where I'm pretty sure he was the RB12 in fantasy points per game last year. Yeah. He could definitely start off strong like that in the opening month, and then we might see those other guys get a little more involved as the coaching staff starts to build faith in them. But yeah, I could see him having a strong start. And what about McMillan being there in the passing game, like having that true number one receiver? Are we going to have defenses kind of backing off a little bit now, and Hubbard having a bit of an easier time running the ball than last year, where he was the main show in that offense, and he still was able to produce more weeks than not?
It's a great point. Like, we were talking about this last season where, like, Chuba Hubbard was one of the most successful running backs from like a success rate standpoint, just moving the ball down the field. And the offense wasn't even good. Like, this was before Bryce Young had really come back and actually had taken a step forward. He was showing things to the point where, again, Chuba Hubbard got that contract extension because he was playing so well and the offense wasn't that good. So even beyond the fact, like, McMillan's out there, maybe there's more of a respectable deep threat on the perimeter. There's just might be more touchdown opportunities for a guy like Hubbard this coming season. So I have him a little bit, again, this is the expert consensus rankings we're showing here, where he's running back 18. I actually have him running back 15, just maybe ahead of a few of these names like Breece Hall, and I'm not sure what the workload split is going to be there. James Cook, he was giving quotes to reporters today as he wasn't practicing, just saying, he kept saying business over and over again. So I'm just willing. And again, Alvin Kamara and Chuba Hubbard's an interesting kind of debate, because I think Kamara has a much longer history as a big time fantasy producer. He obviously is probably a favorite to catch more passes than Hubbard, but how many damn touchdowns are the Saints going to score this year as they're running a 3-way quarterback competition that Jake Hayner's involved in? I don't have a lot of faith in what's going on in New Orleans based on the reports out of camp. So really like a guy like Chuba Hubbard, especially if you're looking to get off to a hot September start. But Boone, give me a running back that you might be a little bit worried about if you're trying to get off to a hot start here.
I mean, I don't want to go back to the Bears necessarily. We don't want to make this a Bears show, but I think you have to be worried about DeAndre Swift. Like, there are so many things right now pointing down for his outlook this year. I think it was surprising that they didn't make a meaningful addition in the offseason. I think they wanted to. I think they wanted to get Travion Henderson or one of the rookies potentially, and they got sniped in the draft kind of round after round, and they just didn't come away with anybody until they got Kyle Monangai much, much later. And what are we seeing over the weekend in their scrimmage? Kyle Monangai getting some reps with the first team. Ben Johnson talking about how he actually thinks that Monangai is a guy that they have faith in, that they could use this fall. So I think we're going to see someone else involved in this backfield. We're seeing DJ Moore involved in this backfield, and the coaching staff has talked about how they want to use him a bunch of different ways. He's shown in the past that he can do that. He can fill that role, take some carries out of the backfield. I think that's very, very interesting for him. I don't think that's great for Swift. And then you look at the season and how it starts for them here, like just very, very difficult matchups here. They got to go against the Vikings and the Lions, like we talked about earlier. But in the run game, those are bottom 5 teams in terms of rushing yards and fantasy points permitted to running backs last year. So those are tough matchups. A guy that I think is probably not going to have that much rope. We saw Ben Johnson have him when he was with the Lions, and we saw them find an upgrade for Swift. That's very narrative based, but we saw this kind of happen before. Do we really think that he has that much confidence in Swift? Or if Swift gets off to a slow start and a couple bad matchups and we have these other guys factoring in, will they start to use Monangai? Will they start to use even Roschon Johnson a little bit more? I think this backfield is incredibly volatile. I'm not taking Swift anywhere this year, and I'm definitely staying away from him in a guillotine format where if he comes out and puts up 2 really bad games, you might not make it to week 2 or week 3, right? So I think he's a guy, it might be low-hanging fruit because he's not going as high as, some of the other guys at the position. He's going more down in that low-end RB2, high-end RB3 range. But a guy that I think is going to have a tough start to the year, and I think he could certainly lose his job at some point this season.
Totally on the table. And, you mentioned Roschon Johnson, who's a guy that showed last year he can be a short yardage back. So, and is also active in the passing game. Monangai is definitely somebody who could be interesting out of the course of the year. And I love seeing DJ Moore take running back reps. Somebody pulled this tweet from a couple of years ago for me that I said, like, I'd love to see DJ Moore in kind of like a Deebo Samuel type role, not necessarily getting like true between the tackles, like gut runs, stuff like that, which I don't even really know that I loved Deebo Samuel doing that at times. I don't even know that Deebo Samuel loved doing that at times, but this was definitely a player that I spoke with DJ about this at the Super Bowl. Like, he wants to be used more in space. It's just easier to get those plays if he's taking snaps from the backfield, but that could take away from DeAndre Swift. So yeah, I mean, certainly when I look at our rankings, you've got him at 26. I've got him at 24. Neither one of us are like, and that's kind of around his ADP. So it's not really like a, hey, really stay away, but there's just other guys I'd much rather click than DeAndre Swift, because if I'm talking about this offense might take a minute to get rolling, certainly I don't want to just be investing in the starting running back right away from a team that, again, like it might get off to a slower start, and I don't even really believe in the talent profile all that much. How many like true DeAndre Swift bros are there at this point?
That's what I'm saying. It's kind of low-hanging fruit, but I think it's also important to note that, this isn't Caleb Williams we're talking about, where it's a guy that they're hoping is going to be the face of the franchise for many years to come. He's going to have a lot of chances to make mistakes early in the season and overcome them. I don't think DeAndre Swift is, so that adds to this, where how quickly could he get pulled, right, and start to lose touches. I think it could happen very, very fast, especially with those early matchups that he has.